Welcome. This is the orientation for Pharmacy 110 sterile products. This is going to introduce you to the lecture component of the sterile compounding courses. I'm going to walk you through Unit 1, and I'm also going to show you how the course operates through Canvas. First is finding the course within Canvas. If you don't find the course listed on your dashboard, what you'll need to do is go into Courses and scroll down and access All Courses. And it will be listed under your enrollments. Okay, going back to the dashboard, we're going to enter into the lecture course. Once you log into the course, this is how it will appear on the home page. On the home page, you're going to find access to your course syllabus, your course schedule, also your grading scale on the syllabus. This course is graded on an 8-point scale. Each chapter, there's several items that you're going to need to do. You're going to read the assigned chapter. You're going to complete the lesson assignment, which is your lecture component. Complete questions within Canvas called Concept Self-Check. For chapters 6 through 14, there'll be additional questions called Check the Basics. There's fill-in questions or essay questions and Make the Connections. It's very important. This being a college-level course, you should answer these questions thoughtfully and thoroughly. Make sure you use complete sentences, check your spelling, and check your grammar. Complete the chapter quiz, and also record the time spent working on related assignments. I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. There's going to be 2 in-person tests. The first test will be Wednesday, August 17th. And the second test will be Monday, August 29th. Additionally, there's a resource center at Paradigm, which you can access through this website, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Now, getting started in the course. So I've also given you a course schedule here on the front page of the course site. The first part is our orientation, which is today, that you're listening to and watching right now. Once you've completed this orientation, you're going to go to a pre-course assignment. This pre-course assignment needs to be completed no later than Saturday of this week. So this pre-course assessment, when you link, you can link there. It's going to take you to the page. So there are 3 parts to this pre-course assessment, and this is a review of what you learned in math as well as what you learned in pharmacy practice. Each section is worth 5 points. When you get here, you're going to type your name. Please use your full name and then hit continue, and it's going to open a video. And that's what you're doing right now. You've already done this, so it will take you through that process. Throughout the presentation, there will be some questions. You answer the questions. Whether you get them right or wrong, you will receive your 5 points, but please do your best. And of course, because fill-ins sometimes will appear to have wrong answers. Even when the answer comes up, it comes up as the right answer. It's just something in the typing. I will review all of them just to look at that. You're going to scroll down to part 2 and then scroll down to part 3. So this is going to review drug labels, syringes, and dosage calculations. Now, another way to access the materials within the course is from the modules page. And each chapter is set into a module. So here we have the pre-course assessment. You can link on that, chapter 1, and all of the assignments in order. But you can access all of that from the home page. Once you're ready to begin work, you can access the chapter by clicking here on Chapter 1. and it takes you to the module Chapter 1. Now don't worry if you don't yet have your textbook. I do have copies of the chapters posted in a PDF format online. You should read the chapter first, then you will go in and you will view the lesson. The lesson will run just like this presentation and your pre-course assessments run. There'll be slides, I'll be lecturing, you'll hear me, and then there'll be questions. Once you complete your lesson, you will go on to the concept self-check. Now, concept self-check are also located in the textbook, so you're familiar with the questions. It's a homework assignment. So for Chapter 1, when you go to concept self-check, there are 5 questions. And then there is an apply your knowledge question, which is at the bottom of the page on all of your concept self-check pages in your textbook. And apply the knowledge asks you a question where you will have to give an essay, kind of short essay answer to. Please, when you're answering any questions, whether it's the fill-in answer from the concept self-check or the make the connections, again, I reiterate, check your spelling, check your punctuation, make sure grammar is correct, context of words, and make sure that you're answering the questions thoughtfully and thoroughly. Don't just give a couple word answers. I want it explained like you're talking to somebody who doesn't know what you're talking about. If a pharmacist asks you a question, you need to be able to fully explain what it is you're answering. Now, if it asks for a rationale, that means explain why. Okay? So after you do your concept self-check questions, there's the make the connections. Those questions are also listed in your chapter, and they're at the very back of each chapter after your little glossary. So within the chapter, there's key terms, and then at the end of the chapter, there's make connections. Once you've completed that, you're going to complete an online assignment. Now, you can access the online assignment by clicking in the module, and it's going to give you the explanation. So there's a link which you will need to use. It will take you to an online resource. This will take you directly to the specific online assignment for each chapter. So you need to click within the chapter you're in for the proper assignment. What you're going to do when you click on that, you're going to get to this screen and you just click on it to go forward. You can do a practice quiz as many times as you like. So it will review the content of the chapter, but to complete the assignment, you must do the reported quiz. When you're ready to do the reported quiz, you click on the reported quiz. Be sure to put your name first and last in the first, then your email, because this is going to send you a copy of your results, and it actually will explain, if you get an answer incorrect, what the appropriate answer is and where you can find it in the book. The third part, you need to make sure you put my email address. My address is alavan@dcc.edu. It's not my whole name, so make sure that you fill that out properly. This is why it's also very important that you put your email address in. In case you fill mine out wrong, you get a copy. If I don't get a copy, you could forward me your copy. I need to get a copy of this for you to be able to have a grade. Then you will begin your quiz, and it will take you through 20 questions. Here are those instructions again. Entering your name, your email, then my email, and then begin the quiz. After you've completed your online assignment, the next item on the list is to do a quiz. So, for each chapter, there is a quiz. You have 25 questions. Even though it says quiz, it's kind of like a homework assignment. It's to help ask you some different kinds of questions. The first chapter is due August 8th. All assignments are due by 11:59 p.m. So you want to be careful about not waiting till 10 o'clock on the day that they're due, because you see there's a number of assignments. There are assignments, and we'll look at the schedule in just a moment, but many are due one day and then the next chapter is due the next day. Now, once you've completed all of this and you've done your reading, there's a reading log. Now, reading logs, as you see, the due date is September 7th, and that allows you time to go back if you do any kind of reviewing. This is important for the SCAT training, and the SCAT training is the Sterile Compounding and Aseptic Technique ACPE Certificate of Completion in Sterile Compounding. So I have to record how much time you spend working on your reading and how long you work on your assignments. Luckily, the computer captures what you do for your assignments, but it doesn't tell me how long you spent reading your textbook. So you need to tell me that. So you're going to record your time. So what you're going to do is you're going to submit assignment, and you're going to just come in here and you're going to type in spent 60 minutes reading chapter 1. Or however long you spent reading it. Maybe it was 45, maybe it was an hour and a half. Then you're going to submit your assignment. Now, this does not close. You can actually go back in and resubmit your assignment. Or you can go into your grade book. And I'm going to, oops, these are filed by date. So of course your reading logs are going to be at the bottom because they're all due later. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to add a comment. So spent additional 45 minutes in chapter 1. In case when you're doing review for the test or something like that, and then you can save. All right. So each chapter works the same way. Now, how do you know what's due? There's a few ways to look at this. So there's the to-do list over here on the right side of your screen for everything that's due. Your pre-course assignment, what's coming up, lesson 1, lesson 2. You can also use the syllabus page from the left-hand menu, which tells you by date when things are due. And they're shaded over here. Every day you have something due. So you see the first one's due on the 6th. Chapter 1 is due on the 8th. Chapter 2 is due on the 9th. Chapter 10 is the 11th. Chapter 1 is the 8th. 2 is the 9th. 3 is the 10th. 4 is the 11th. 5 is the 12th. Chapter 6 is actually due by Sunday. And Chapter 7 is due by the 15th. The 15th is the first day that we will meet face-to-face. We're going to do a lab that day. But the lab on Tuesday the 16th will actually be on chapter 6 and 7. So I want you to have read those before we actually do that lab. So you have a lot of work to do in the next week, basically 2 weeks. You see this class works pretty quickly. Every day you have something pretty much done to do. So reading a little bit ahead or getting started on things is a good idea. All right, back to the module. So let's now look at the syllabus. So here's the syllabus, which you can access through the site. Gives you the outline, gives you the point breakdown for the course. So this is a point-based class, and it is graded on an 8-point percentage scale. So you see where you can earn all of your points. The total points that are possible are 1625. Now, activities have deadlines, but they aren't going to close. So if you miss one, go back and complete it. But know if it's late, you're going to get half your credit. So half is definitely better than a 0. So you want to make sure that you at least complete your work. This is the point breakdown, and it will track your points in your grade book to let you know where you're standing at what time. The points for your logs will be entered last. The tests are each worth 200 points. There's 2 tests. There is no final for the lecture part of this class. However, there is a written final with the lab component. All right, now let's look at this course schedule. So this looks just like the schedule, 1 that I've emailed you, and 2 that you'll find on the front page of the Canvas course site. Now, if you notice at the bottom, retest 1 and retest 2. For the SCAT component, you are required to get a score of 75% or higher for it to qualify for the ACPE credit. You can have a second attempt if you do not get 75 on first attempt. So that's what the retest is. Now, there's also a little bonus in this. Even if you pass it, if you want to improve your score, you can do the retest. And if you score higher, I will average your 2 scores so that you will come out with a higher score than you've originally got. So there's a little benefit to that. Okay. All right. So let's continue on with the orientation to the actual first unit of the book. Okay, so let's talk about the book. So in Unit 1, which is chapters 1 through 5, for the first test, however, it covers chapters 1 through 7. So Unit 1 is exploring the basics of sterile compounding. We'll talk a little bit about the course layout, which I've already kind of addressed, the textbook layout, and I'll talk a little bit more about that SCAT course. So the course overview, PHR 110 is your lecture component, or what we call didactic component of the coursework, with those mostly online, with those 2 in-person tests. Pharm 112 is a lab component, and that will meet Monday through Friday from 2 to 5 p.m. The last week of class, which will be September 6th through 9th, we may have some other lab dates, and those times would be adjusted because the 106 lab will begin that week. So they're in the lab in the evening from 2 to 5. So the course layout, as I said in Canvas, you're going to read your chapter, you're going to go into Canvas, you're going to review your lesson, your concept self-check, and the check your understanding. Those questions are embedded into Canvas. Your lesson questions, they'll be embedded like this. Then concept self-check, then make the connections, do your online assignment, do your quiz, and then record your reading time. So Unit 1 covers Chapter 1, Sterile Compounding as a Pharmacy Technician, Chapter 2, Sterile Compounding Environment, and Chapter 3, Sterile Compounding Supplies. Now, those 3 chapters are also the first lab. So part of that lab, you will have pre-lab work. So in addition to all of those dates that are already scheduled, you're going to have some online stuff that you're going to need to do before you actually come to lab on Monday, August 15th. That will be in the other course. That'll be available in a few days. Chapter 4 and Chapter 5 are the second lab, but that's actually something you're going to do at home, and we're not actually going to do in lab. So there'll be a narration to that as well. Chapter 4 is medication orders and labels, and Chapter 5 is calculations for sterile compounding. Lab 3 covers Chapter 6 and 7. Those technically aren't part of Unit 1. Those are technically part of Unit 2, but they are part of the first exam. And we will do aseptic garbing, hand washing and gloving, and cleaning the horizontal laminar airflow hood. Now, some of these words may seem foreign to you today, but by the time you finish Chapter 1, they'll make a lot more sense. So Chapter 6 and 7 are one lab together, and that lab we will actually do in practice on Tuesday, August 16th. A little bit more about the textbook. So in the textbook, the chapter layout starts with an introduction, gives a historical overview. Please read that. There will be questions on the information that's contained there. We have to know where we came to understand where we are and where we're going. In the first part of in Unit 1 anyways, there are basically two parts to each chapter. One is the concepts, and that discusses the concepts of the purpose of the chapter. And then at the end is the concept self-check, apply your knowledge questions. Part 2 of the chapter is about training, and it covers the resources and supplies and discusses those. And then there's an exploratory lab in the first 5 chapters. So those are basically question type things that kind of outline more of the information that's contained in the chapter. At the end of the chapter, as I stated before, there will be a chapter summary. It's part 3, it's known as assessment in the chapter. It's the chapter summary, key terms, and then the make connections. Once you go into chapter 6, there actually is another part of the lab, or part of the textbook in part 2, that is a procedural lab instead of an exploratory lab, where we actually will do hands-on components. Resources that are important for your textbook. In your textbook, pay attention to these little notations on the side margin of your pages. There's pointers, it's a little syringe. It gives you some best practice knowledge. We are going to learn best practice. Reality is not all places will practice to that level. It doesn't mean that they aren't meeting compliance. It just is not a best practice. It's not the top rung kind of thing. There's also the little skeleton with the red writing that says be aware. So those are safety alerts. You want to make sure that you pay attention to those, something to be conscious of. And then there's a little book, and it gives the highlights and regulations of USP Chapter 797 that are pertinent to that information on the page. Also, the text does come with a student DVD. Now, many of you are purchasing used books and probably will not have access to this DVD. That's not a concern. When I do the orientation for the lab, I'll show you how to access those video demonstrations. I actually post them in Canvas. So if you don't have a DVD, don't worry about it. It's not a problem. Also, the Internet Resource Center. So as I showed you on the front home page of the Canvas course, there's this link that can take you to the actual publisher resource page. Using that link from the Canvas homepage, located here, I have opened the resource page for Paradigm. So some important things, there's some in-textbook resources, glossary of terms, appendix, in-textbook resources, oath of a technician, sterile compounding area procedures for Unit 2, chapter resources. You can go into the chapter. There's handouts, chapter resources, key terms. Supplemental resources, commonly prescribed drugs, metric conversions, common abbreviations. I was looking for the appendix. There we go. So under in-textbook resources, there's appendix. So here, definitely appendix B is useful abbreviations, common medical terminology, root words, variation of different things, medication symbols. Very important, the SIGNA interpretation, especially when you're doing your Chapter 5 assignment, you might need to refer to that, as well as some common medical, common parenteral medications, and then in Chapter 14 when you're doing chemo, and then Appendix D gives a copy of the process validations. Those begin with Chapter 6. So these are basically your checkoff sheets for completing your hands-on component process validation checklist. And you can see exactly what you will need to do. Now, when we get to this point, you will need to complete each of these tasks at 100% accuracy to receive the ACPE credit. Now, you can have lots of practice time, and you can have a redo if you need to. And as I was saying, your appendix, very useful. Now, a little bit about the SCAT course. So the SCAT course, as I said, it stands for Sterile Compounding and Aseptic Technique, which is actually the title of the textbook. It is an ACPE accredited course. So ACPE stands for the Accreditation Council for Pharmacy Education. All pharmacy education, pharmacy colleges have to meet these standards of accreditation. Also, for your certification component, when you do your continuing education, you have to complete ACPE accredited continuing education. So this is a very respected pharmacy education component. We have the opportunity to complete an ACPE accredited SCAT training course. You get a certificate of completion. I just want to stress this does not mean that you are certified in sterile compounding, but that you have met a certain standard and have a certificate of completion. The cost of this course is $125. It is not part of the tuition. It is separate. Now that's where some of your hard work from your student organization fundraising comes into play. There's generally scholarship money of at least $25 to help you offset the cost. The content is already embedded into the course, both the lab and the lecture component, so there's no extra work that you need to do. I take care of all that. The only thing you need to do for me is record that time you spend reading your chapters. So we will talk more about this. I will have registration forms, and we will collect the money, and then I will send it off to Austin Community College, which is the provider for the accreditation. And we'll talk more about that when I see you on the 15th. All right, so now you're ready to get started. Good luck. Let me know if you have any questions. Email me, and I will see you all in about a week and a half.